gospel, Jesus runs into a widow, already has lost her husband, who now has lost her son. What is left for this woman? Particularly in a very patriarchal society where there's no man on whom to rely. So, as we hear this, here's a woman who is at the edge of everything. I would say, anytime we are aware of the death of children or young people, it is always a trauma. It is assumed that we will bury the older generations, but not the younger. And so, certainly in my life as a priest, the most challenging and the most painful funerals have been the funerals of children and youth. And I think we understand why, because that gets our attention like nothing else. And if children can be taken from us, what is left? It's a very painful thing. And we have to stand by. And do we ever get over that? I don't think so. So here is a case of Jesus doing this. Now, the problem of hearing these in the gospel is if we just situate it as Jesus and this woman and her son, then we say, well, why didn't Jesus raise the other dead children in that city? Why did he just do one? And then when we're praying today for the same miracle, why don't we get it? You have to be very careful with this, because the miracles are about what is larger than what is going on in the story. And but the thing is, Jesus is moved by compassion for this woman. There are two things I would suggest we reflect on tonight. The difference between sympathy and empathy, and the difference between resuscitation, which is what happened to this son in the gospel, and resurrection. So they're two different things. Let's separate these out for our own purposes. The difference between sympathy and empathy. Now, you know this. Let's just review what we already know. Sympathy is, I feel sorry for what somebody else has gone through. I feel badly for them. But it's easy to be sympathetic, but I may not feel what they are feeling because I have not had the same experience. I feel badly for another person, but I'm not quite sure. I don't have the experience of knowing what they're going through. Empathy is I am feeling, literally feeling with the person. That's what compassion is. It's feeling with the person. There is a commonality there. I'm not just feeling sorry for, I have some appreciation of what they're going through, and I am with them in that. I would dare say, you've heard too many of my lines over the years, some of the most difficult things are said in funeral homes as you're greeting the family of deceased. And very often, we say the wrong thing. Trying to offer, it's when we try to explain to the family why their loved one died. Well, God did this for a reason. There's a purpose. Don't go there. Who are we to tell anybody what God is doing in their life? Reverse the roles, put yourself in that line, and let them tell you that, and what are you going to be thinking? You probably wouldn't want to say it out loud. But sometimes, in trying to be comforting, we say the wrong thing, And we don't even know what we're saying. We're trying to be helpful, but we could be pouring salt in the wound. That would be, we're empathetic, or we're sympathetic, but we're not empathetic. We're not in that with them. A family that is enduring the loss of a child, a family who has not had that experience, could not quite say what another family who has gone through that could and would. We have to be very careful that we are accurate in expressing ourselves clearly. And compassion is, to the best of our abilities, really trying, it's feeling with the person, within the limits of the possible. I've mentioned this as an example before. When I was first ordained a priest, I was very nervous conducting funerals because I had never had in my adult life, had not had the experience of a loss yet. So in those first few years of being a priest, I was burying a lot of people. And I felt kind of like cardboard saying the prayers at the altar, to be honest with you. We do it. You do what you have to do. It was not that the funeral was not a valid prayer, but I felt kind of just disconnected from the pain of what that family was going through, because I had not had their experience yet. I think that's the difference between sympathy and empathy. What is it in Jesus in this gospel that makes him compassionate, feeling pity for them? He noticed that there was what was going on, and he was moved. There are a couple times in the Gospels Jesus was moved with pity. They were like sheep without a shepherd. How many times is Jesus moved by the pain and suffering of the people around him and does something to reach out to them? Jesus is modeling for us, while we don't raise the dead, we can, in our compassion, reach out and lift people up in the way we care about them and for them as we have the opportunity to do it. That is our challenge, to notice where there is a need and not to run away from it, but to be there in whatever way we can. You know what just came to my mind? So it's a pet peeve, so I'm going to throw it in. When you are driving down this Leechburg Road, and in front of this church or any other one, there is a funeral procession trying to get out to go to the cemetery. You know where this is going. Please stop. I cannot tell you. And I've said, I think on my tombstone, it is going to say, Gaston died on his way to the cemetery. Because they wouldn't stop. Now, people are looking all over the place. Some people don't notice. But it is amazing. Now, there was a day when funerals were front and center. Everything stopped. Now, you got to finagle your way into traffic. And you take your life in your hands. A little bit of compassion for a family grieving would go a long way to helping them deal with this. And you'll get to where you're going probably soon enough anyway. And if you're late, you're already late. We are so obsessive behind those wheels. Don't let anybody get in front of me. Now, that's a pet peeve. That was not in my script. But I figure I don't always have a chance to lay this on you, and you're getting it again. But anyway, there are many ways in which we can be compassionate, and we're not so consumed by ourselves that we don't notice the pain and suffering of others. We have to be able to see it and then respond. Sympathy is nice. Empathy and compassion is the gospel value. That's being Christ-like. That's the grace given. That's where we want to go. Now, the second point is the difference between resuscitation and resurrection. This is a bigger issue. Well, Jesus raised this young man and gave him back to his mother. Imagine the joy of that experience. Incredible. Getting good news after having bad news is just, we're ecstatic. Let's not take that away. But that man died again, as did Lazarus and the other people that Jesus raised from the dead. Those are signs of the power of God over what we're most afraid of. So in Jesus raising this man, he is giving an image. He is showing that God has authority over death too. We need to know that. We need to have confidence in that and to believe that. And what ultimately the miracle is not the resuscitation of this young man, but the joy that is given to him and his mother about God being with them and will be with them when they have to say goodbye for the last time too. And then, because if the end is not guaranteed, then all of these miracles are cheap. They're just for a little while, and then you got to go back and go through it all again. Resurrection is the ultimate transformation of our whole humanity into a life with God and with each other. Resuscitation is going back to what we were. We can resuscitate a corpse. We can have near-death experiences. Resurrection is dying and rising. But not just about life at the end. Just think of the new hope and the new energy that this woman was given for the rest of her life on earth because of this miracle. Think about how when we reach out compassionately to those around us in need, how their hope is lifted. How many more pictures of these tornadoes in the Midwest can you look at? In those pictures, total devastation. And it just keeps going on and on and on. If I lived in Moore, Oklahoma, I wouldn't know what I would do next. Where are they going to go now? But you see, look at the amount of attention and the response of so many people to reach out to try to do something, to be moved, to help that group of people who suffer so intensely, to do something for them. If you're receiving that, rather than being ignored in your suffering, is that not a little bit of resurrection and picking you up and giving you hope? When we do this, and we do this in many ways, there are many ways that we give compassion. Sometimes you give your money. Sometimes you're there when it's necessary. Sometimes you offer some kind of support. There are many ways that this is done. A kind word. We never know. But that we would be like Christ is in this gospel is our goal and our hope. And Jesus touches others by sending us to lift them up. Let's not say, oh, Jesus ought to take care of them. He's sending us. Our compassion is everything. Let us realize that as we come to the Eucharist tonight. We have been raised up. We have been given new hope. We carry this treasure in earthen vessels, and we wish to help each other to find our way to that ultimate safe harbor where all of this will be behind us, but that God's presence and his power to bring all things to a happy ending is secure in us, never to be lost again.